Hey guys, what's going on? It's Alan here, welcome back to my channel. So you guys have probably been wondering where I've been the past few days, and if you've seen my previous video where I'm talking about PC problems and stuff, you'll know I've had some problems with my motherboard. I accidentally broke it myself, stupidly, so my PC has been out of commission. So I've exciting news. I finally just purchased a new one and it's on its way here. It should be here in a few days. I'll be able to build my computer again, which is what we're doing here. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to talk about the parts that I'm using in the build. This is going to be part 1. In part 2 I'm actually going to do a video of me building the PC. And then in part 3 I'll do some benchmarks and some video capture showing footage of the game, some games, and what kind of frame rates you can expect and stuff like that of the system, just to make it an all-round thing. So just want to start off by saying it's not a completely new build, because the only thing I'm really replacing is the motherboard. But I never did a build video for this build the last time because I didn't know what I was doing. It was the first time I was building a computer, but now this is the second time, so I have more of an idea. So the motherboard that I decided to go with was the Asus M5A99 FX. Revision 2.0, and it's the Pro version. So because it has Crossfire and SLI support with 2 full 16x slots, and we'll get more into the motherboard when it arrives, so I'll be doing that in the next video when you'll be able to see it. But I made in a previous video, I was saying that I was going to move to Intel, and I recently decided that that was going to be delayed because of course I don't have the funds right now, and I figure it'd be best to wait. Also, Intel are coming out with a new bunch of CPUs next year, and I'm thinking of getting one of the i7s that has the 6-core processor. So we'll get onto more of that later, that's not really relevant to this. So I decided to go with this motherboard instead, which has all the features I need, and it's actually fairly cheap. So I'm going to go and show you the other components that I'm going to be using for this build as well, just so you guys have an idea, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and then that'll be it for this part. So just thought I'd upload something so you guys know that I'll be back in business in a few days, so, or hopefully within the next 2 weeks anyway, because it'll take a while for it to arrive and then to build it and so on and so forth, but hopefully we'll be back in operation within 2 weeks. So with that said, I'm going to go and show you the rest of the components, and then we'll take it from there. So the first component obviously is the case, so that's the one we're going to go over. So this is the Cooler Master Scout Storm 2, which you can see there, and as we can see we have the disk drive already installed. There's space here for some fans, 2 fans, but I haven't gotten them yet, so that'll be on the upgrade list. And then inside here we can see I have my, don't know if you can actually see through the light there, I don't think so, but the power supply is installed. It's a CX750M, which is ample supply. It'll give me room for upgrading later if I need it. So that's the case. It's a very reliable case. I think it's a very nice looking case, so you can get a full view of it. Plenty of room for airflow, and it's large enough to support ATX motherboards, which is what I like. So that's the case. Okay, next up is the processor, which is, as we can see, the FX 8320. It's a very good processor. It's an 8-core, and it competes with the Intel i5s, but in price range it actually competes with the Intel i3s. Now, this isn't a top-of-the-line processor, and it's not going to compete with the newest i5 and the newest i7s, but it gives you a bit more bang for your buck, and if you're trying to keep your build under €1,000, I'd recommend getting this. It's perfect for gaming, and it's pretty good for rendering as well, and live video editing, so I'd definitely go with this. Unless you're out an Intel, then you can spend a little extra money and maybe get a bit better performance. But as games are going to be more supporting multi-threaded applications, I'd actually go with this, which is why I went for it, because games like Battlefield 4, they use more than 4 threads, and this has 8 threads, just like an i7. And while the i7 will give you better performance, if you can't afford an i7, this is the way to go. After our processor, we're going to need to keep it cool. So this is our cooler here, which is the Hyper 212 Evo. So my processor never gets over 25 degrees Celsius. at idle, and it rarely goes above 45 degrees under load with this. Now if you want to get very high overclocks, then I'd recommend going water cooling, but you can still overclock to about 4.5 gigahertz with this and you do well. But I haven't overclocked it that far because my motherboard didn't support it, but my new motherboard will, and we'll get onto that in a sec. So the next thing then is the RAM. So I have 8 gigs of RAM here, Crucial Ballistix Sports, 2x4 gig, and that's more than enough for gaming. You could get away with less if you want, but that's what I have, 1600 megahertz, and it's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Behind that then you can kind of see the monitor there, which is an Asus VE247H. It's a full 1080p 60Hz monitor, gets the job done. It's 2 milliseconds as well, response time, so that's very good. And then the most important part, some might argue, would be the graphics card, which is the HD 7950. I went with this before I knew anything about computers, but it's a very good graphics card even now, and you can get it for fairly cheap, around €220, and it can max out most games if you put anti-aliasing down to low. But I'm intending to crossfire this with another one later on in a few months, so that'll boost performance a bit as well. So then for power, as I've mentioned before, I have a CX 750M. This is already installed in the case, but I figured I'd get the box out so you get an idea of what it looks like. And this will provide ample power for my whole system, even when I crossfire two 7950s, because I did an estimation and it should only use about 600 to 650 watts. So it's a very good power supply. Now, if you're not planning on crossfiring or anything in the future, you'd probably do better to go for a cheaper one, maybe a 550 watt or a 600 watt, and that would be more than enough. But that's essentially my build. I also have a 2 terabyte hard drive in the case installed, which will store all my games and all my programs and everything. I'm intending to upgrade to an SSD at some point, but not at the moment because I don't have funds. So, as I've mentioned before, I already have most of this build built before. I had this one built before, but then my motherboard broke, thanks to my stupidity really. So I'm getting a new one, which is the M5A99FX, which I may have mentioned before, which is very good for crossfiring, overclocking, and I've actually purchased it today, so it should be coming in the next week or two. So can't wait to be back in business. And yeah, so I just thought I'd do this so you guys know I'm not dead, and I am working in progress. So my PC will be back in order soon. Also, I forgot to mention my keyboard, which some of you guys may want to know. It's a pretty shitty office one that's been lying around, but it gets the job done. I will intend to buy a new one when I get a job or whatever and get some money. And then my mouse, which I'm pretty proud of, it's the Corsair M65 laser mouse. It's very good. It's probably not in the best condition. There's a bit of dust and stuff on it. My hands are a bit dusty too. But either way, it's pretty cool and it looks awesome. Performs really well too. So overall, I'm really happy with this build. If you're building this exact build, including the monitor, you shouldn't spend more than €900, maybe €1,000 just about. So really, it's a very good build for the money, and it'll last you for a couple of years anyway. Especially if you're planning on crossfiring, which I am, which will give me top performance for the next year and a half or so. Maybe 2 years, at being able to play games at ultra at 60 frames per second anyway. So that's essentially just my goal with the PC, or even high settings I'm okay with. So I'm rambling here, but like I said, this is part 1 of this build. The next part will be part 2, where I'm actually putting these together in the case. I haven't got the motherboard to show you yet. That'll arrive soon, and I'll do a quick unboxing of that to show you what's in it. And then I'll put it together, and the part 3 then will involve me doing benchmarks and playing games. So yeah, and showing the frames per second so you can see what performance you can get with this setup. So in the description you'll find a link to the next parts when they're up, and there's also a link to my PC part maker where I put together this build, so you can get an idea of the price and where to buy if you're interested, or if you want to buy a similar build you can just change out some stuff. It's in the link if you want to see it and get pricing ideas and stuff like that. But anyway guys, this is the end of part 1. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Please like the video if you liked it. Please dislike it if you disliked it, and leave some feedback. It really means a lot to me. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.